Hello, everyone, again. Next, we have Abrams with Wendy Ceballos. I didn't ask you how to say your last name, but
That's right. Perfect.
yeah. And she'll be sharing her link now. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to share my screen as well. Let's see. Okay. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Great. So the first book up, and I'm going to cover some fall books, and then I'm going to cover some spring books. And I went kind of in a gifty vibe. So the first up is we have The Art of Star Wars, The Mandalorian. It's $40 hardcover. It's going to be on sale December 1st, which makes it perfect for gifting throughout the holidays. It is by two creators at Lucasfilm, and it's the official guidebook. And honestly, I have to say that like this little guy is really why I wanted to put this book in front of you guys. Baby Yoda. I can't with Baby Yoda. The book has a lot of Baby Yoda, but it also has a lot of really fantastic artwork throughout. It's a fan's book. The new series is coming out October 2nd, so we're hoping that it will get, and look, there's Baby Yoda again. It also includes a lot of photos like this, so showing the initial sketches, and it has a lot of text throughout that talks about their creative process. So for real fans of Star Wars and not maybe new fans that have just come by way of Baby Yoda, it works for them as well. Here's some more shots. Okay, so next up we have the Backyard Birdwatcher's Bible. It's $35. It's coming out at the end of October. We put out two backlist books that are in the similar vein, the Beekeeper's Bible and the Botanical Bible. They're both hefty tomes. It's paper over board. There's beautiful artwork. It's a really great giftable package, but at the same time, it's also a really hardworking birders book. I know that in the fall, I always got asked as a bookseller what was like, I need a new bird watching book, and this is the one for the season. It's got fantastic photos throughout as well, some great artwork, and then it's got really detailed text throughout the talking about, so it's that hardworking book, also a great gift. So if you've got that customer that knows the person loves birds, they think they have everything, they won't have this one. And then we go to our cookbook. So Matty Matheson is a Canadian chef who has started out with having a Vice TV show. He's a big personality. He's tattooed. He does kind of crazy stuff. If you're familiar with, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, but we published another cookbook called F That's Delicious, Action Bronson. He also had a Vice show. He's a US version of Matty, but Matty doesn't smoke pot. Matty is sober. So his first book that we did with him, Matty Matheson, a cookbook with this kind of lush Henry VIII kind of cover, was a New York Times bestseller. It's still available. It was a little more for someone who knew their way around a kitchen, maybe had a little more skill. The new book that we have coming out this season, Homestyle Cookery, is really meant for the home cook. It's $35. It's on sale next week. We're really excited. Matty is a big fan of indie booksellers in Canada and the US, so he's hoping to do he will do a lot of promotion, hopefully driving customers to your store. It's going to be filled with really lush photography. His food is kind of all over the place, from shrimp dumplings to a patty melt to this lovely looking ravioli, but it's really food like you're living when you eat this food. The layered dip is a little impractical, I'll admit, on the display there, but it looks delicious. Look at all those pickled onions. And the queso short rib. So people are gonna be flipping through this book and wanting to make everything, make everything in it. So we're hoping with all the press that we got for the backlist that the new one's really gonna be sought out at your stores. The next one, we're transitioning. I'm doing some hard pivots, which our list does, which I think makes our list a great list each season. And we now have Overlook on our list, which is mostly fiction. Their nonfiction is now on our Abrams press list. I just wanted to call out that The Bell on the Lake by Lars Midding is an indie next pick for October. Laura Gravelin from Brazos. Her review was featured, so we're really excited about that. It's kind of a creepy tale. It's a small town that has these two bells in a lake, and the mythology around these bells are buried, like they're at the bottom of the lake, and they're supposed to ring out when danger comes. And it just so happens that this priest and another man kind of come into town, and right when they come into town, the bells ring out. So it starts, I'm not really giving it too much away because it starts from there. Also, kind of a weird connection, Norwegian Wood, which I'm actually going to mention again. It's a backlist book that Laura Smitting did for us about chopping wood. That was a runaway bestseller. I know I sold many copies of that one. This Little Light by Lori Lanson, she's the author of The Girls, is coming. It's available now, actually. I'm sorry, it came out in August. I wanted to mention it because I think it's really timely. It's a really fun and fast read. One of my marketing department colleagues called it Gossip Girls Meets The Handmaid's Tale. And it starts out that there's an explosion at a purity ball, and one of the girls attending has been sort of framed for this, and it follows her while she's in hiding, trying to escape the authorities. But it's a not too far off future where abortion is illegal, and there are activist groups kind of fighting against the Christian right that are enforcing certain laws on women's bodies, and it's all centered around this kind of charismatic pastor who's not quite what he thinks. So it's a little bit of a mystery, and it's a touch of Handmaid's Tale. I wouldn't go too far down the Handmaid's Tale road, but it's a really, it's a quick read, and it's really fast paced, and it's a little infuriating because you're connecting it to what we're kind of seeing currently going on as well, or I suppose maybe it's fear mongering a little bit. Another hard pivot back to cooking. Actually, this one's not cooking. I'm sorry. This is a wine book. So Big Macs in Burgundy is wine pairings for the real world. It's a $24.99 trade paperback. It's by Vanessa Price, who is an award-winning sommelier, and it is a kind of a high-low pairing. She takes our everyday foods like French fries or even Cheetos and pairs them with affordable wines and expensive wines. So she goes the gamut from the food and the wines. What I really love about this book is the charming illustrations and her deep knowledge. And it's like an every man's kind of wine book. You don't need to pick fancy wines. You don't need to eat fancy food, and you can still find the right pairings. And then we have, so again, it goes that high-low. So you've got some Cheerios one day. You've got your donuts. You've got that pack of chicken from Trader Joe's, nacho bake. And again, the illustrations, I've been spending so much time with these illustrations. I don't even drink wine, but I love this book. And then you have a fancy pasta as well. So it can kind of fit with everyone. We did get a little pushback. Some of the wine snobs internally were like, oh, that's not for us. And it might not be. It's for every woman, every man. And then it covers different areas of where wines are made. And specifically, I wanted to include an image of the different regions or different areas of Napa where some of the wines that she's included are coming from. Next up is One Last Song. This is an October pub. It's got a foreword by Jim James. This is kind of a cool book. So the question is what is the song that you want played at your funeral? What's the last song that you want played? And it has these great, fantastic illustrations with the artist and the song that they chose. And then it has an essay talking about why they picked that song. I think it's a perfect gifty book. It's one of those books that people will pick up in the store and spend time with and find and think of someone that they love. And it's really gets you thinking about what your last song is, which sounds a little bit morbid, but I took a class one time where we had to like plan that out down to the song you would pick. So I find it fascinating. It also has some stats from funeral care, like the songs that are played, kind of number one. It's like, I think there's like 50 most popular songs played at funerals. So again, it's got these really great illustrations, which I think is just super charming. The cover is really interesting. And I think it's a book people will spend time with and have fun with. And then it includes more information. So it talks about Elvis Presley, the songs that were played at his funeral, or Joey Ramone. Some of them are interesting. Next up, kind of a similar vein, a little bit different, but I love these illustrations just as much. So it's Bookish Broads, Women Who Wrote Themselves into History. It's essentially, it features writers from around the world in all different genres with their biographies, and it shows pictures of their writing spaces as well. So it kind of goes back and forth, but it really talks about what their impact on literature was. And I think that these illustrations are just, I want posters of these in my house right now. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. So it's definitely a gift for readers. Perfect gift book, another one of those books that people are going to pause at that front table with and spend some time with. And then next up, I thought we distribute Tate Publishing, and they have this really cute tiny book, which I'm hoping you can tell by the person holding it. It's a little tiny, it's the Wilson Sketchbook, and it's J.M.W. Turner's sketches, but it's just this tiny, tiny little cute gifty book, $14.99. And when it was passed around, when we first saw it, everyone kind of fell in love with this tiny little tome for fans. So I'm a fan of all cute things, which is why I included Baby Yoda in the first slide. So now I'm moving into spring. So these are books that hopefully you'll be hearing about from your reps, but I wanted to mention some fun ones. So we have an imprint called Notary that's folding and going to be folding into Abrams' Image. Notary was our kind of gift and journal line. So Draw Like a Child is going to be on Image. I've started painting and drawing, and I do draw and paint like a child. So this is really speaking to me, and I'm going to embrace it rather than fight against it. It's got drawings. It's a journal that you can draw in and work with. So it's a guided journal essentially. But I think it's fun, I think it's bright, and I think it's accessible for adults and children as well. Catfacet in the studio, behind the scenes with the master colorist. I didn't realize that was a job until I started working at Abrams, and I fell in love with his work. From everything that he does, from sweaters to quilts to paintings to fabrics. He's such a creative person, and his just love of color is fascinating. So this book really takes us inside his studio where he's working and walks us through his creative process. And I think that people can shy away from color. And I think that someone who hasn't shied away and has embraced it really helps others find inspiration on unexpected color comparisons. And I think there's never too much bold colors. He's really well known, he's really popular, so I think that he will be sought after. The next two books are sort of micro photography. The first one up is about ants, and the entire book has a lot of information about ants themselves, but I think the selling point on this is it has all these great, fantastic photos that are really super up close. So you're seeing ants in a way, like this little ant with this cute little mohawk. And it looks a little bit creepy, but they're really, really beautiful up close. And the whole book is filled with gourd, and it talks about the history of ants, the worker bee, or not, they're not worker bees, they're worker ants, but the work that they do, how they interact with the environment. And along those lines, we have the hidden beauty of seeds and fruits. So this is botanical photography by Levon Bliss. Again, it's like micro photography. So all of this photography, and he did micro sculptures, which you might be familiar with, is all seeds. So again, really up close, they look like these beautiful, tiny sculptures. I think it's another book that we do really well, really lush, beautiful photography. It'll have a lot of information and detail about the seeds themselves and the environments that they work in. And I love this little guy too. Like the little mohawk is a theme for us today. And I wanted to mention Burnt Sugar. The shortlist for the Booker Prize was just announced, and we have a book on the list. It's not coming out until January, so fingers crossed for us that it wins. We do have e-galleys now on Edelweiss. You can access them on Edelweiss, or you can email me, and I can get you a galley. I can't speak to it yet because I have not seen the e-galley myself, so I haven't had a chance to dip in, but I am just as excited as hopefully you are. And then we've got the little book of Big Corgibutts, which I just was mentioning. We just got a blurb from Stephen King about the little book of Big Corgibutts, which is fantastic that he's taking the time to review a book about corgibutts, because who doesn't like corgibutts? So it's a whole book about learning how to draw corgis. It's got some crossword puzzles. It's a fun, gifty book. There's even a kind of breaks down the body of a corgi as well. You can draw your corgi as bread. You can just draw a plain old corgi. You can do a corgi crossword. It's a really fun, easy, impulsy gift book. Then we have Buchanan Smith Axe Handbook. I mentioned Norwegian Wood before. It's another book that we've done really well on. This one is not so much about the exercise of chopping the wood in a particular way, but it's really about the axe itself and knowing what a good axe is, buying a good axe, restoring it. It really is a detailed breakdown of axes, which I didn't know there were like 10 different parts of like the head of an axe. So it's really fascinating. It's definitely, if you're looking for that kind of guy gift book, I think it hits that note. It talks about the proper swing, which is definitely a thing. I have tried it myself to no luck. And if you find an old axe, how to restore that, which I think is really useful. And then, how much more time do I have left?
4 minutes.
4 minutes, okay, I can do it. So we're still talking spring. We're really excited to have a new book by Nate Powell coming out called Save It for Later. So you might remember that Nate Powell is the illustrator for the March series. It's a really big get for us. He has been protesting and out with his daughter and having to have conversations with his daughter about what she's seeing in the world, what's happening around them. And this is sort of his journey through that, through participating in these protests, having conversations with his daughter and what all of that means and having to parent through that. Here are some of the illustrations that he has done. So it's his signature style. And I think it's interesting to hear from the voice kind of behind the illustrations. Did March, obviously that was a powerful voice in and of itself, but I love that he has his own connection to that work and that he's bringing that to the forefront. And then the final book is the incredible Nelly Blai. This is both of the last one and this one is from Comic Arts, which is an imprint where we put out graphic novels and graphic nonfiction. Nelly Blai was one of the first women in my life that showed me that you can do the things you want to do and you can live an exciting life despite the fact that maybe everyone around you is telling you that you can't because you're a girl or because it's too dangerous. She was so adventurous. She was so bold. You know, the story of her going into the mental institution kind of on her own at that time in 1887 with no guarantee of getting out. It was fascinating to me. And then she went on to expose the abuses that were happening and make a difference. And she spent her life and career continuing to do that, to call out the imbalance of power and to speak specifically to like women's experience at that time. And she lived a really fantastically bold life, and she certainly served as inspiration for me as a young girl. So I'm really excited that we're putting this out. Again, the last handful of titles I talked about are spring, so hopefully your reps will be, well, not hopefully, I know they will be talking to you about them. And that is it for me.